At last, my crew and I stepped aboard the near-empty hull of what was to become the Thunder Child. And I do believe that it was only then that it really sank in that this was our new home, our new future. Earth was no longer capable of sustaining life as it had done for millions of years, and we were to blame. The human race had allowed itself to sleepwalk into destroying its own world, and for generations, the people with the power and the real chance to make a difference, those so-called world leaders, politicians enduring their 15 minutes of fame, their short terms in office, had gone by, ignoring all the warnings, until at last, insect life had begun to disappear. Far too few realised that those small, insignificant little creatures that we took for granted had a far greater role to play in keeping our ecosystem healthy than we gave them credit for, and without them, plant life began to wither and die. And still, we did far too little to reverse their decline, but most, it seemed, were content with exacerbating the problem. Splinter groups began to emerge all over the world, and warfare ensued. Eventually, the coalition got its heads together, and after much debate, it was agreed that Earth was no longer suitable for human habitation, and so Project Space Haven was launched. Ordinary men and women were rigorously tested, trialed and trained to live and survive in the harshness of space. Given a stockpile of supplies, resources and the best technologies available, they were put aboard barges, engineless vessels in space that could be designed, expanded and manipulated to the crew's needs. A computer had determined that my crew and I were compatible shipmates, but we still had to live in close confinement for several weeks before launch just to make sure the computer was not lying. I was given command of the crew because I scored highest in the testing and have shown natural leadership attributes, and as we were about to leave, we were given our one simple order: survive. We rendezvoused with our barge at the giant asteroid Halifax. The site had been chosen because nearby were small asteroids that we could mine for resources, and an old derelict ship that had failed at its mission, that we could salvage for parts and resources. All this I planned to do before we departed the area. My crew and I had all agreed that all of our thinking, all of our planning, must be for the long term. At the moment, we had a very finite amount of resources and supplies, and so we had to be careful with everything we did. Nothing could be wasted. However, there were a number of future issues that I could see that we would have to address now while we could. Firstly, our power supply. The existing small generator that came with the barge would suffice at first, but as our vessel grew in size and more systems came online, it would most likely struggle to power the whole ship. And so one of our first jobs was to build a new, much larger generator. This one would be capable of powering a much larger vessel that we planned to build. The smaller generator would be dismantled and would also put in a solar panel module, the first of many I hoped. I foresaw a day when we would no longer have the fuel to power the generator and would rely almost entirely on solar energy. We also began immediately compartmentalising the ship, breaking it down into smaller sections. This would help with a little bit of crew comfort as well as a safer environment. Some of our machines and equipment gave out a great deal of noise and heat, and they could make living on this ship extremely uncomfortable, potentially even dangerous. Some necessities for the crew were placed wherever we could place them for now. Bed, a toilet. We had a crew quarters area of the ship planned, and that's where they'd be moved eventually, but for now, they were just left wherever they could be left. On the shuttle, on the way to the rendezvous, I had personally worked out a working crew schedule. It was quite a brutal schedule, I must admit. But as the ship began to take shape, I promised my crew that it would be changed and improved and would get more rest time, more time to sleep. But for now, we would each have to take it in turns and only have the bare minimum 4 hours sleep within a 24-hour period and a couple of hours of rest time throughout the rest of the day. And so, even though we had all agreed on planning for the long term, we all knew that right now, whilst we were at our peak fitness, still quite well rested from our journey, that we should take our chances early and put in the maximum amount of work we were capable of putting in, at least until the ship's main systems all came online. And so, with the future problem of power supply taken care of, along with some crew necessities, we could now plan on expanding our ship, using our supply of hull blocks to create a much larger vessel, improving space, and a little bit of crew comforts. The ship's hull design was not something that I had really addressed with the crew, but rather wrote up my own plan and told them to get on with it really. We knew it didn't have to be pretty, but just had to suffice to keep us alive. Besides, we were somewhat limited on what we could do with the ship's hull. After all, we didn't have an endless supply of hull blocks to build the vessel. But the way I thought of it was thus. I wanted the cargo and shuttle bay to be on the left, relative to the ship's direction of propulsion that is. All the machinery spaces would be down the centre of the ship, like a vital nervous system or spine. And the crew quarters, relaxation and sort of canteen area would be on the right hand side of the ship, relative to the direction of propulsion. The crew area was our next main focus. The beds, the toilets, but most importantly, our food supply. We had a relatively small amount of food aboard already, considering there was only 4 of us. And so, we would have to rely on grow beds with heated lamps to grow food, vegetables, fruits and artificial meat. It didn't taste very nice, but it would keep us alive at least. As for water, that we could get from trading, scavenging on derelict ships, or mining asteroids for ice. And so, near the end of day 3, with the ship's interior coming together nicely, it was time to send an away team to search the nearby derelict. Cooper and I were both busy mining the nearby asteroids, so the job would fall upon Poppy and Esme. It was quite important that they both went to the derelict, armed and expecting trouble. There were dozens of derelicts in space already, and we had received information before we launched that many of them had now been overrun by giant arachnid creatures. Many believed that these were in fact the evolved descendants of an extinct species of bug that may have even originated from Earth. It is said that perhaps some of their ancestors had stowed away upon spacecraft and inhabited the space stations that surrounded Earth, and from there evolved and mutated quickly into the grotesque species we see now, after coming into contact with various types of radiation. And so, we'd have to make it a rule to always approach derelicts with a certain degree of caution. Esme had unfortunately proven to be somewhat clumsy, and so Poppy was armed with the shotgun and Esme carried a pistol. They both retired aboard the shuttle, donning their personal life support suits. Cooper and I wished them luck, of course. We didn't know what they might find over there, they might well need it. And upon Poppy's instructions, the shuttle dropped out of the bay and made for the airlock of the derelict ship. And now for Cooper and I, we could only wait apprehensively and listen. Listening through the earpiece of our personal radios as Esme and Poppy reported on their progress across the gulf between our ship and the derelict. We could hear the shaky anxiety within their voice as first Poppy and then Esme boarded the derelict vessel. He had been searching in the dark corners of the room, and I couldn't help but join them in their 3-second countdowns before they burst through doorways, not knowing what they might find on the other side. Hearing them scream, followed by shots being fired over the radio, was quite unnerving. The feeling of helplessness and wishing that I had gone instead. More shots as they moved towards the rear of the vessel, and suddenly, cries of ambush, gunshots, and then silence. Thank you ever so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. So this was a bit of a pilot episode, a bit of a tester. I wanted to see what people's opinion was of this kind of narrative for this game, the games community, and that kind of thing, what people think. If you did enjoy it, please do let me know in the comment section, leave likes and subscribe for more and all that good stuff, and I will probably get around to doing it again very soon. I have more footage already recorded, and so I really hope and I really want to continue this story. So please do let me know if you like it. Thank you ever so much once again for watching. I am Baron Quertier. Hope you have a very nice day, and cheerio.